Welcome to this episode of the Solutions University. Today we are talking about police brutality, how it affects America's people, how we can put an end to it, and really what is it as a whole. So let's start there. What is police brutality? Police brutality to me personally, and I'm going to let all these other lovely people kind of give their perspective as to what it is. I think that it is an abuse of the badge problem. I think we have people, in this line of work that are taking advantage of that title and are unfortunately doing a lot of really horrible and fatal things. So that being said, I'm going to kind of just go down the line. Topher, Sean, and then Greg, if you guys want to give your piece as to what you think police brutality is, we'll start there and then go into it a little bit deeper.
So police brutality to me, anything is just in essence the abuse of something, right? So when the police take their power and abuse it in a way that's inappropriate, to me that's police brutality. It might not even be extreme as, killing somebody. It may just be them illegally searching somebody, you know what I'm saying? Something like that. To me, any abuse of power should not happen, right? So with that standard, it could be a lot of different things. But like we discuss all the time, police officers are meant to uphold the law. And anybody that's fraying away or straying away from the law is to me an abuse of power. So that's what police brutality is.
Awesome. All right, Sean, you want to give what your perspective is?
So I actually looked it up just to be able to give like a definition so that we don't have somebody go Google, do their Google foo and try to come back and give a retort to something that he's just paraphrasing.
Yeah.
Is it the Oxford or is this Webster?
This is the Oxford.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're good.
Police brutality is defined as the unwarranted or excessive and often illegal use of force against civilians by U.S. police officers. Forms of police brutality have ranged from assault and battery to mayhem, torture, and murder. Some broader definitions of police brutality also encompass harassment, to include intimidation, verbal abuse, among other forms of mistreatment. So essentially what it is it's as police officers, you're given a certain right. So in specific relation to police brutality, they're given a certain level of authority, and what they're doing is abusing it, whether it be racially charged or it be just somebody who used to get bullied in high school maybe, or they're just on a power trip. But it goes against essentially anything they use that is considered police brutality has a civilian term that carries criminal charges. So
gotcha.
You want to close in that?
Yeah, and actually this is pretty good because I have a different perspective because I used to be a police officer, and not only was I a police officer, I was a defensive tactics instructor. So Sean is 100% correct. It is an unwarranted excessive use of force on a civilian by a police officer. That's the official definition of the term. And then but I'm here to tell you and all of our viewers, there is not one police academy across this entire nation that does not do an outstanding job of teaching the use of force continuum, right? And the use of force continuum, just to cover it real quick, it first is just a show of force, just being in the area, just being to where people see that there's police officers around. That is a level of force. That's the lowest level of force. Then there's what we call verbal judo, right? That's the next use of force, and that's used to de-escalate a situation, to bring people down from escalating into something that's going to be a worse situation. Then after that is a physical restraint, right? And that's where all of the pressure points and the takedown holds and the choke holds and all of those come into play. And they're all taught, and there's procedures for each one. So I guarantee you there's not one, talking about the Floyd case, there's not one academy in this whole United States that teaches a knee to the neck. There's not one, right? So, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later. But after that, to get the suspects subdued, that's the whole focus of that level of force, right? And so we can't take away chokeholds. Right now across the United States, they're saying take away chokeholds, take away chokeholds. We cannot do that, and I'll tell you why. If Kate was a police officer and Kate had to take down Sean by herself, and it's a one-on-one sit situation, you know, Sean's a big boy. You know, Sean and Sean can pull those weights, right? So that chokehold is going to be very important, and it's going to be taught to you, Kate, on how to use it professionally to be able to get in control of that situation. So there's a lot of use of force, and then the last two is a less lethal use of force. So the bean bags, the mace, the taser, and so on and so forth. And then the last one, of course, is the lethal force. But so that's really important for all of us to understand, leading up to an excessive or an unwarranted use of force. So if I catch a shoplifting, I'm not going to use a less lethal force as a police officer, right? I'm not going to decide to do that. Okay, so I'll stop right there because that's a definition.
Hey, real quick, I just want to add for viewers out there, since we have a lot of vets following, since the three of us are vets, and Kate's friends are literally like all vets. It's what Greg's talking about is the exact same thing as escalation of force in the military.
And just what you said as well, Greg, about the situations in which chokeholds and things like that are used. I think that's something that we forget as civilians very, very often. Is a lot of these times that these police officers are interacting with people, some of them are high on drugs. Okay, when you're on drugs, I personally haven't done any, but like you think you're invincible. You know, you see how a lot of people behave. They're not thinking rationally. So it's unfair to think that, oh, well, this was just a sober, normal human being just taking a walk in the park. Like, that's not how their interactions are going. And people aren't thinking about the fact that if you are on drugs, even if you're not on drugs, if you're somebody who is wishing to harm a police officer, you're trying to get away from arrest, they have families to go home to as well, you know, so they have to be able to protect themselves by any means necessary. And we as human beings have to take accountability for if we do put ourselves in the positions to have to be encountering a police officer, we're kind of deciding how they are going to interact with us. Now, granted, as we're stating, we're talking about police brutality. There are those that abuse the badge. But I think on a general whole, in terms of police officers, a group of bad apples does not make an entire bad police force. And a lot of these men and women are just trying to keep themselves safe. So I just wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and you didn't need heavy drugs, man. I was drunk as a skunk one time, and I thought I can walk on fire. So yeah, it's you don't even need heavy drugs. You just all of a sudden you just like, you know what? I can become a pyromaniac. You know, just flame on real quick. The Human Torch and yeah, just doesn't turn out right. Someone had to drag me out of there real quick. It's like it just doesn't work. So.
There's story after story with the people on meth that are shot multiple times and they keep coming.
And they keep going. Keep coming.
I also want to point out that I was just live with Brandon Tatum, everybody, and we was talking about it. One of the things I brought up is if you take away that's one path or one option. If you take away that option, there only leaves so many more options. So why would you take away and leave a more deadly option such as, you know, your gun?
Yeah.
No, so
you're
I was
skipping a step.
Right, you're just skipping a step, and I don't want that to happen. You know, I'd rather and like you said, it's more cases of successful chokeholds than it is unsuccessful chokeholds. Matter of fact, the whole Eric Garner law, he only had him in there for 13 seconds. So for the coroner to be like he died from a chokehold for 13 seconds, I don't know nobody that died from a chokehold in 13 seconds. So we got to be real about that.
And the other thing to top on that was just personal experience, but and I'm sure Greg would have way more stories and be here all night. But in Chicago, we bring up Kate, like a female officer. I was walking through Logan Square, and this dude was getting arrested. He was a big boy. He was getting arrested by a little short Puerto Rican female. She was like 5'1". She got one cuff on. This dude turned around and punched her so hard and took off with the cuff still on. Just took off. So there is a need for it. And in my younger days, when I had a chip on my shoulder and a bit of an attitude problem with police officers, I can tell you right now, there ain't one police officer that ever took me down. It was like 3 or 4.
Right.
So those means are necessary, and people don't understand it.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you put somebody in the arm bar wrong, then that guy's gonna walk away with a broken arm or dislocated shoulder, and he's gonna try and sue the cops. Like, they just don't understand the overarching issue.
Right. And that's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. They're either gonna get sued for doing something or they're murdered. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's they can't really win in that situation. Which kind of leads me into the next question I want to bring up. You know, does defunding the police actually fix the problem? A lot of people, you know, since these incidents that have happened with Brooks, with Floyd, you know, we need to just get rid of their money. We need to just completely defend them. You know, I look at it very similarly to the same situations with our school systems. Okay, our school systems are really suffering because they do not have the funds to be able to give kids the proper education. If you remove the resource of properly educating police officers, you're just going to get crappy police officers. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't help anything. Now, granted, do I think that money needs to be put into the training aspect? No, because as Greg said earlier, I think that they're doing actually an extremely adequate job of teaching the proper methods. It's making, I think the money needs to be put towards creating a system that much more thoroughly, that didn't make any sense, more thoroughly vet who is getting put in uniform. I think that's our problem here. It's not whether or not they're being taught the proper techniques. It's the matter of who are we just letting in to this place of power that's now abusing it. How do we go about making sure that the right people are in the uniform defending the people? And I think that if more money was put towards, whether it be a more in-depth, I don't know, psychological testing, you know, longer testing periods to be able to get through the police academy, and being able to add different factors to that really do study the psychological side of it. Because people who are able to disregard a life like that and are using the badge to basically commit murder will show psychological signs of that, just as any other murderer or, you know, off mentally human being would. And there are psychiatrists and psychologists that can pick up on that. So that's where I feel like the funding needs to go. I do not think completely crippling them of finances is the way to go. I think that puts us in total mayhem.
So yeah, so the whole thing when you was talking about, yes, I agree. Why would you take money away from something that's already, you know, pulling pennies or strapping for pennies? Scrapping is what I'm trying to say, not strapping. I don't know what they're strapping for pennies for. But yeah, so you're scrapping for pennies already. It's not gonna help you out. And I'm telling you right now, I've been in the military. I know how it is. When you don't get what you want, you go to the next best thing. And sometimes it's not the best thing in the world. So we don't want to take that chance with important things like this. We need to go ahead, fund them properly. I think we need to increase their pay. A lot of people's like, well, if you pay them too much, then people ain't gonna want to serve just because they're gonna want to serve because of the paycheck. I'm like, that makes no sense. It's like saying, so why would we pay doctors $200,000 then? You know, so I mean, they're literally doing life-saving surgery, but you're gonna say they're doing it for the money. Who cares? As long as they're doing the job properly. Just like when people join the military, it's like, I'm not mad at you because you didn't join because you was patriotic and you love the country. I don't get mad at that. If you join because you want a free education, by all means, it's your right to serve. But all I care about is, are you going to do your job if you're going to do it properly? So I think we need to just pay them more so that way we can attract better qualified and more educated people. Because I'm telling you right now, I ain't going to be a police officer. I don't care how much it is. Right now, the return of investment on what you got to do and put in is not worth the time. So if they increase the pay, it attracts better people. And then you turn around, like you say, you do better training. And I would suggest, you know, do more mental trainings, take some of their money and hire some more psychologists, more counselors, allow them to vet and do all kind of stuff, and allow them to shift positions. If someone expresses some concern about what's going on, and maybe they just got off a beat and they, you know, it just shook them a little bit, you know, PTSD, whatever it is, like put them on a desk job for 2-3 weeks, for a month, you know, let them calm down, go do training again, regain their nerve. You know, we ain't got to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but give them the opportunity to rejuvenate and come back stronger.
So one of the biggest comments that I get on it when you say I did a video on TikTok about defunding the police and how out of your mind you must be to think that's the right thing to do. And they come back and say, it doesn't mean that we're going to take their money away. So I just wanted to say that in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, right, the definition of defunding, defunds, right, transitive verb, to withdraw funding from. That's a fancy way of saying take your money. Okay, so just want to clear that, right? First off, one of the other key aspects on kind of piggyback on what Topher said is, who cares if they do it for the money, because they're going to get in, they're going to get that money, but guess what they have to do? They have to do their job correctly and properly to keep that high paying job. That's one. Secondly, I don't agree that it's a training issue whatsoever, because a training issue is a training issue. It's a standard across the board. So we can take somewhere like Minneapolis. If Minneapolis's police academy had a training deficiency, then all soldiers would reflect, or soldiers, all officers would reflect that deficiency, meaning all the cops would be doing it. It's not. It's a bad people issue. And unfortunately, there ain't a psychological eval test that you can put on the market that's going to find out that they're bad people, because they're not stupid people. And in the military, you have people that have done some bad stuff, right? They've undergone all kinds of psychological evaluations. As far as extending police training, I don't think that's necessary either. They say, well, it takes you longer to get a barber's license. In 16 weeks, I was overseas in a foreign nation with a fully automatic weapon pulling bullets down range. 16 weeks, that's 4 months. In some cities, you're required to have a college degree to become a police officer. Does the pay reflect it? No. So those are honest to God people who want to help the community because they're pinching pennies and can't pay bills half the time. So defunding is not the answer. And another thing on that is like taking a step away from the escalation of force, right? If you're taking away their money, you're taking away advancements in protective gear that can make them feel more safe, less threatened, and less likely to use their means of deadly force. You know, and that's the thing with the military is people complain about the budget all the time. Do you not want your soldiers to go overseas with the best protective gear possible? So I think defunding the police 100% absolutely is not the answer. I think throwing some more concurrent training in, as in recurring throughout the year, like every 6 months, you got to take, in the military, it's the dreaded 350-1 training. You got to take your suicide prevention. You got to take psychological tests. You got to take sexual harassment. They could obviously change that over to suit the police force interaction with the community and civilians.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's first two topics going to sound like I'm really just trying to defend the police department as a whole, but on this one, 100% has no bearing to the problem at hand. The funding has no bearing whatsoever. I concur with all three of you that if anything, I think there should be more funding, not less funding. You pull away more funding, it's like throwing gas on the problem, right? It's just going to cause more problems. It's going to do a domino effect of broke down police cars. Not, you know, if you took any police department's line item expense report, you will see that in almost every single category, there's not enough money to pay for everything that needs to get paid for. The overhead costs, the maintenance, the trainings, the uniforms, the pets, I mean, it just keeps going on. The jails, I mean, it is crazy. So there's not enough money there to begin with. And it reflects on the pay. I was a cop for 5 years, and for 5 years, I made under $30,000 a year as a police officer. And you know, and I did it for that long with the college degree. And I didn't need it to be a police officer, but I had a college degree, and I was being paid $20-some thousand a year. It's crazy. So the funding needs to stay there. That's not at all where the problem lies. And I'll save some of my other stuff later to where I think we can do some fixes, but it has nothing to do with the funding.
And just to touch back really quickly, I think everyone's made great points, but touch back really quickly on what Sean said about, you know, the gear and being protected and making them feel more safe. Again, also referring back to my initial comment about kind of the unfair, if someone's on drugs, you know, whatever. It's that same concept. Criminals don't follow the law, period. Okay, so if you've got someone with an AK-47 and you're a police officer going to fix a situation with someone with an AK-47, you're already at a disadvantage, you know? So we have to think about that kind of stuff too. When they're going to criminal scenes, these are people who have attained different means of illegal something at some point, you know, and they never know what they're walking into. You know, I can only imagine the type of calls that police officers have to deal with. So when we're talking about stripping them down completely to a bare minimum of tools, bare minimum of ability to protect themselves, that's literally sending them into suicide, you know, because if criminals are aware that they're completely at the bare minimum of being able to protect themselves, there's no fear there. This is a joke, you know, why are you guys even here? We can take you down in 5 minutes, you know.
And
So
that's an outstanding point, Kate. I just want to stop you real quick there. Outstanding point. You know how many rounds that you have to put down range to stay proficient at a weapon? You develop some muscle memory, but you need to be able to shoot those rounds down range to be able to become proficient enough and accurate enough to keep a shooting situation in the public safe.
right.
And bullets cost money. Just
A
to add
lot
to the
of money.
thing.
A lot of
A
money.
lot of money.
There you go, training, right?
Aha. So moving forward from that topic, I think we're gonna end with a big one, but we're gonna touch on, does the nature of police brutality. So when I say this, I mean the taking advantage of a title or a badge. You know, does this also apply to other job fields? And even though, you know, some of them may not be fatal per se, we see this complete uproar towards police brutality in any sense. It doesn't have to be someone dying. It's just the physical action of someone taking advantage of the badge. We do see this in other aspects in fields of work. You know, there are doctors, as I know that Topher was talking about earlier, you know, that literally make money off of selling organs on the black market. Like that happens, you know, so people are doing this in every different field and profession, but we don't hear that same amount of outrage for that type of stuff, even though doctors are there to protect and serve too. They're there to protect and serve our lives. So I guess that it's kind of this interesting situation of, okay, well, if we're really going to talk about the advantage of the badge being taken, why are we not talking about it on all platforms of titles being abused to this magnitude where we're rioting in the streets and burning things down? So anyone else that has any other thoughts on that, you're welcome to chime in.
What?
All right.
We totally need to cover question 3 though before we end.
Oh, I know. No.
I was gonna say, just to talk about that real quick. You got to understand the mission, right? I hate to say it, but Black Lives Matter is their leaders are Marxists, and one of the key things they do is try to get rid of the police and replace the police. So yes, so they're not really worried about the hospital stuff right now. They're not even worried about abortion. They call Black Lives Matter. They're not even worried about any other Black lives that are dying. They're not marching. Chicago had one of the deadliest weekends and most violent weekends in the longest time. They're not out there marching about it. So we can obviously see their mission and their goal. And their goal is to get rid of the police and replace them, right? So yeah, of course, I agree with you. We don't hold them to the same standard. But I guess we're looking at it as, you know, of course, doctors are not trained to obey the law to the same extent, I guess, right? They also have a lot of malpractice insurance, so even if they do something wrong, you know, they have that covered. So I guess, you know, we just expect more, right? Because doctors are not in the community going around protecting us. They're just there. You go to them, right? Police should be out in the community, you know, seeing what's going on, making sure everyone else stays safe. So when you see the badge, you want to see somebody that's part of the community, that knows people's names, that knows the culture, and that's honestly just that friend, that figure, that person you can reach out to whenever you're in danger and you feel like your life is threatened or anything, right? So I guess just socially, we would expect something different from them, and given the history of it, but I don't honestly know. Besides that, I mean, that's just my theory. Besides why we hold them to a separate standard.
Right.
So
For those
I'm
of
gonna keep this one.
For those who don't know what Marxism is, it is, I just looked up like a simple definition of it, is a political or economic way of organizing society. So basically, you know, picking and choosing certain things to create a narrative or to create a way of behavior in society that someone or an organization deems proper in their eyes of the way of the human people to function.
So to add to that real quick, it's really simple. I got more simple when I didn't look up. I just know it, but you can look it up. Marxism is from the founder of Marxism is Karl Marx. He is known as the father of communism.
Bang.
There you go.
Bang.
So, so it's no bueno, right? Ask people of Venezuela, ask people Cuba. Ask half of Latin America. It's no bueno.
Exactly right.
I'll make this quick. So like you look at the cops, right? And obviously you got your tax dollars, whatever, right? It does go to fund them. Okay, Roger. But those guys are there pretty much out of service. I mean, if you look at what Greg said he made, so you understand that like for a family, right, that his wage is below the poverty level for a family. And that's what they're getting paid to do that. Now look at a dentist. How many dentists have been found to have put anesthesia and raped their patients?
Yeah.
Right? Or taking like their clothes off, taking pictures, harassment, all that stuff is part of the definition of brutality. And it is abuse of their power. And you're paying them a butt ton of money to mistreat you. And nobody's caring about that. And just so you know, Topher, you have 79 shot, 10 killed in Chicago over the weekend. And just to tap that one real fast is the biggest excuse I hear about when we say those things, and we've all said them, all four of us. If Black Lives Matter, why aren't they protesting the black on black crime? Why aren't they protesting the fact that 94% of blacks are murdered by other blacks? And I brought up that it's gang related, drug related, some type of criminal activities related. It's not just a random black person walking around going boom, 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 right? Their biggest excuse is because white cops are killing blacks because of the color of their skin. Blacks aren't killing blacks because of the color of their skin. And I just want to say that we'll take George Floyd, for instance, all right? They knew each other. They could have had beef. That cop could just been shoved in a golf locker by a football player in high school and was a dick on a power trip. He didn't yell a racial slur. He didn't say anything that insinuated it had anything to do with the color of the guy's skin. And if you don't know a man's heart, you don't know why he did it. For all we know, he was being a dick asshole, and he had his knee on the back of his neck. And I've been there where I felt like I couldn't breathe. And he didn't even think that dude was gonna die. You don't know. So you can't sit there and say that white cops are killing black people because of the color of their skin. Is there maybe a couple instances you could find somewhere where the guy did say something? Sure, and then that is okay. But that's not how it ends in most of these situations. There's nothing hinting towards the color of skin. You're just picking it out. And if you look at Black Lives Matter, like Topher said, look at their activity. It will show a graph, 2016, right after the election.
Yep.
Oh, where are we at now? 2020. Where are we about to be? Election time.
Yeah.
Every single electoral season. And just on that point, you know, I've done videos on this too, guys. Anyone that's watched my TikToks know that I speak on this pretty openly, in reference to what you said about it not being racially motivated. Both of these situations, and they're different, Rayshard Brooks and George Floyd, very, very different. I have analyzed both of these thoroughly. And if you kind of watch the progression of my videos, I go from very, very heartbroken, sympathetic, and I'm kind of like, oh wait, we're analyzing this a little more. We're learning, and I'm still sympathetic, but to an extent, because here's my biggest issue with both of those situations when it comes to the police brutality. Yes, neither one of them was racially motivated. They were both breaking the law prior to arrest. So in the logic sense of things, there was need for the police to be present based off of their behavior prior to arrest occurring. And I don't think anyone wants to really look at that and analyze that. When you look at Rayshard Brooks and his situation, yeah, he was drunk and driving, which is why police were present. That is, in fact, breaking the law. Now, I understand with the George Floyd case, and they were talking about, the cashier thought he was acting strange and thought that he used fake currency. The reason he was acting strange is because he was high on fentanyl. That is, in fact, against the law. No one really wants to talk about that. Now, does that change that George Floyd shouldn't have died? No, not by any means. This is the biggest debate that I have with people, is when I bring up his criminal history, when I bring up his drug history, when I bring up why are you bringing up him being a criminal has nothing to do with his death? Well, actually it does significantly, because if you remove his action of getting high on fentanyl, he was never in the position to be around the police. There was no reason for them to be there. So for me, when people try to say, oh, well, we should just disregard his history with drugs because he died, so it doesn't matter now. That's like me saying, oh, well, Hitler committed suicide, so we should just ignore everything that he did. That's not how that works. That's not, you know, we have to analyze that. And that's why we're analyzing the cop that killed him past to look, okay, does he have a history of being violent? So why is it that the cop's history of being violent matters, but Floyd's history of being a drug user doesn't? Same thing with Rayshard Brooks. He had a previous DUI to this one as well. Okay, he was out on parole serving a 7-year prison sentence for child abuse. That's the only reason he was out. Wasn't out or because of COVID-19. Wasn't out because he was on good behavior. Wasn't because he was an upstanding citizen. It was literally to prevent the spread of COVID-19. So his mentality isn't, I'm a changed man. It's, I got out kind of easy here because of COVID. Doesn't mean that all of a sudden he's learned his lesson, which he clearly didn't when he jeopardized American lives and decided to drink and drive on his daughter's birthday when he could have stayed home sober. But everyone wants to defend it and say this was a race crime when it was not. No one forced this man to drink and drive. No one encouraged him to drink and drive. He made the decision on his own, which put himself in a position to have police present. So I just really wanted to analyze those two scenarios when you talked about, you know, neither one being racially motivated, which actually kind of covers one of our major topics. Because it just, no one wants to acknowledge that. No one wants to have a conversation.
When they grab a guy or a plate or any of that and they run it, all that information comes to that police officer. So if you, and it wasn't just drugs, all right? George Floyd, again, did not deserve to die.
Right.
However, the police's actions are going to reflect who they're dealing with. And when they get serve for this, serve for this, serve for this, violent crimes, drug abuse. Then they hear the report, acting strange. They think he's doing this. And maybe he is, maybe he's on drugs. They don't know what to expect, but they are going in with a heightened level of alertness and or aggressiveness. And that's natural. And you can't get that out of people, no matter how much training you go through. I've walked patrols so many times, and it doesn't matter if I did 1,000 patrols or 20 patrols. Guess what? I'm still going to worry about is, I'm not going to step on an IED right now.
Well, and I'll dovetail off the information thing. So people don't know this, but when I was going through the academy, and I was the president of my academy class, when I was going through, they put out at that time over 80% of the police officers killed are the nice guys, police officers. In other words, the police officers that would get all this information and kind of ignore it because they want to take the situation and be the nice guy. They don't want to offend, so they won't pat the perp down, or they won't ask the questions or go through procedures like they should. And every time, those are the officers that get killed, right? So it's very important that the officers see that information that comes across the rap sheet. And then keep that in the back of your mind as you're dealing, even if it's a simple stop, a regular stop or something else. Okay, so let's go back to your question. So with the positions of power, Sean touched on it a little bit. What I can't stand is everybody blanketing the entire police profession as cops are bad. We see now there's a fad going around saying F12, right? Or something 12, means F the cops. So it's a hypocritical position to take when you're claiming racism and you're claiming bias, when that stereotyping across the board, all blacks are this way, all Latinos are this way, all whites are this way, right? It's stupid to do that. You can't do it with the profession either. And this is what Sean touched on a little bit here. He said about the dentist. Well, we know that there are priests that are pedophiles. Are all priests pedophiles? No. There's a very, very, very small percentage that are, right? Same with cops. Teachers that's sleeping with students. There's a very small percentage that do that. You can't blanket an entire profession over the issue is with an individual. And then that's where the solution part will come later. But we have to get out of that paradigm. We have to get out of that mindset to just blame everybody across the board. That's what I can't stand on that. Now I'm going to throw some statistics at you just because you guys did. And I looked these up this morning. Washington State University did a study nationally, and police officers were less likely to shoot an unarmed black suspect than any other race. Why? Because it's embedded in their brain right now. Don't pull a gun on a black person just because they're black.
Yeah.
The minute a cop is thinking that, they're destroying the training that they just went through, that they're supposed to be unbiased about skin color. Well, here's the media and the community and everybody else driving it in their head. You're racist, you're racist. So now they're forgetting about their training to treat everybody per situation versus the skin color. So now the cop's in jeopardy by not pulling his gun or whatever the case may be. Okay. And then there's another one, Roland Fryer, who's a black scientist. He did a national study, and his outcome was there are zero bias for any police shootings against somebody of black skin. Zero evidence that shows that any cop shot somebody just because they were black. Okay. And then the last one is a police officer is 18 and a half more times to be shot by a black suspect than a black suspect being shot by the cop.
Yeah.
I think Kate hit the exact one. I always said in my video, I couldn't remember it, but I said it's like less than 0.005%. There's a sliver. And Kate, I think you said in one of your videos, it was 0.004. Like that's 0.004% of the black population is killed by cops. 0.004.
Yeah.
I had someone actually bring up to me the other day. We were having a conversation about it, and there's a bunch of videos. There's so many different videos going around right now of interactions with cops and all that kind of stuff. But I did have someone bring up to me, it's terrifying right now to be a cop of really any race, but specifically a white cop, in any type of city or town that is predominantly black, because you now have to decide, okay, as you said, Greg, am I going to handle this situation the way that I know my training wants me to handle this situation? But at that point, I'm jeopardizing my career. I'm jeopardizing my livelihood, because if I do something, okay, even if, like, we've seen this, even if this person decides to use force against me to wish me harm, and I respond in defense of my life, when all is said and done, I could get sued, I could get arrested for assault or murder, and now my family is left without me to help support them. I've got 5 years in prison for simply doing my job. Exactly. So right. We're creating this stigma right now of, no, don't do your job as a cop. In fact, you should do everything to not do your job as a cop. Why? Because of this person's skin tone. And that in itself is racial bias, is now no longer racial bias of, oh, we're killing you because you're black, which, as you stated, there is no blatant evidence to that. But there is blatant evidence right now due to the media that it's being very nationally made known. If you do anything harmful, even though you might be in self-defense to someone of color, you're now putting your head on the chopping block to be a national enemy. And that's terrifying, to anybody.
Yeah.
And they say your name on that news, so people can look you up, public information, find your address, harass your family. It's dangerous.
For anyone who thinks that is we're exaggerating, I know people on TikTok, okay, that are getting doxxed left and right for simply stating they support the president. They're having their addresses put out and people threatening to come and harm their children. I had a personal friend of mine that happened to him last week. He's got a 15-year-old daughter at home, and someone put his address out across 5 videos. So when we say these things, this isn't just, oh, they're coming up with the worst situations in their head. We're saying it because we've seen it happen over things much smaller than someone defending their life, So just, you guys got to keep that stuff in mind too.
Yeah, right now you can come try. You can come and try.
Yeah. Hey, I need some target practice. I was gonna say, let's go ahead and get to that final question.
Yeah, that third, number 3.
Okay, sorry.
Damn it. 3 and 2, those are like the most important ones.
I was trying to lead up. Okay, so we kind of touched on 3, which is police brutality racially motivated. I feel like we've kind of talked on it, but if you guys have any other points that you want to say on that,
you can skip me because I literally answered that. My answer.
You guys,
let's go to 2.
Okay, do we kind of, yeah. So I guess the wonderful question that brings us here today, guys, is how do we prevent police brutality from happening? I feel like we also touched on this just a little bit, but basically when we were talking about funding, I feel like we kind of touched on some solutions of how to prevent this from happening. I think, again, I just think a lot of it is psychological evaluation. I think a lot of it is figuring out who we are putting in uniform, why we are putting them in uniform. I think what we touched on with paying them more is massive. If you look at the people that are serving our country, military, police officers, EMS, these people literally are seeing some of the most traumatic things ever, like not something that we will never even imagine to see as civilians. Me as a civilian, I've got 3 other vets here. But that come home, they either end up homeless, they end up with PTSD to severe amount to the point that pushes them to suicide, yet they're probably some of the lowest paid professions in our country. And that in itself shows these people are doing this because they're passionate about the American people. They're passionate about protecting the people. If this was about a payday, they wouldn't be doing it. However, for the aftermath of what these jobs cause, the therapy alone that is needed for them, I feel like we should be kind of helping them out with that, with their paychecks as well. So I think those 2 factors are huge on that. So I will leave the rest to you guys.
So how often, or we just leave it up to the professionals, how often you think they should have that check? As often as needed or just a standard?
It should have a standard.
Yeah. I feel like it should be like any other, like kind of like, oh, I get paid every Friday. But I feel like the amount they should get paid should have that cost of basic cost of therapy, basic cost of, any type of psychological help they may need to cope with what they are dealing with. That average amount should be factored.
That their therapy is covered by, in most cases, by a psychologist that's employed by the police department.
Okay.
Like if they have to shoot someone, they have to go see the shrink, right? They have to use their firearm. But I think like what Tober's saying is if they did it like say every 90 days, right? Yeah. You have to go see this person. But that goes back to defunding the police. Do you think that if every officer every 90 days had to see a shrink, do they have enough shrinks to facilitate that?
Yeah, you're talking a massive amount of costs there. Okay, I'm going to jump in real quick. I think one there's three points. The first one is the departments themselves as a whole. The leadership of every department needs to hold their officers more accountable to their training. Okay, they need to instill better discipline within their officers to be able to follow procedures accordingly. And when they mess up, no matter if it's a simple misdemeanor type of thing to something as major as putting your knee on a neck of someone and killing them that way, they need to be punished right away and disciplined right away. And that's an interdepartment thing that needs to be made. Okay, that's the first point. The second one is the chief of police needs to go around to every single group within their community, the BFW, the city council, school board, every group that you can think of and be invited to their meeting and explain to them and educate them what the use of force continuum actually looks like, why it needs to be used, and so on and so forth, in what situations. That educates everybody within the community that's in a leadership position to be able to tell their people, which will just be a word of mouth then, and it'll funnel out into the community, into the family core. And then the last one is there's a book that's out that I would recommend that would be high school, maybe high school, but for sure collegiate level reading. And that's by Heather McDonald, and it's called War on Cops. And in there is every one of these studies that I just mentioned, plus a plethora others with statistics from 50 years ago to most current now. It's an outstanding book, and she's with the Manhattan Institute, so it's just not the random authors. She knows what she's doing, talking about. So these are some solutions that I think that needs to be made.
I had a some quick points. I'm gonna just go through them quick, read them. So one of the only things really that can be fixed, right, is if an officer does something wrong, then he actually needs to be punished. That's one. Punished accordingly. End the cover culture. All right. Start holding everyone accountable. Like in the military, you live in the barracks. Private shows up to formation. He didn't shave. He's gonna be in trouble. Who do you think else is gonna be in trouble? His roommate that stood there and watched him walk out without shaving. And that's how you have a grown man shaving another grown man's face, right? So end the cover culture by ensuring any officer in the know or who stood by faces charges as well or punishment as well, because that will end it real quick. You start punishing everybody that knew about everyone that let it ride, they're not going to cover their buddies no more. They're going to stop it where it starts, or they're going to be in trouble too. Also, part of this, it keeps going on to law enforcement, to law enforcement, to law enforcement. You know, this is not an issue all over the country, and there's a reason why. The community needs to get involved. The community needs to get involved. It's not on the cops to do everything. They're already some of the lowest paid people in the nation. They don't need to do everything. The community wants to have a safer community, a safer sense of feeling with the police. Then do something, get involved, do a cookout. I don't know, call it the Help the Blues Support You, and do a neighborhood cookout or a district or precinct cookout. I understand big city like Chicago, right? That's why they have so many different precincts and so many different districts. They're broken down into small areas, because a cop is less likely to use excessive force or police brutality on Jenny's kid. I know, Brad. Do it again, I'm gonna tell your mother. It's where you get that sense of community from, and those cops are there. Another thing is, a lot of times they have a cop from a neighborhood in these big cities, which is where most of this stuff happens, is major metropolitan areas. Grew up in this bad neighborhood. He knows where the gangs are. He knows where the drugs are. He knows who's doing what because he grew up there. But then they take him and go, no, you can't work here. And they move him somewhere else where he don't know nobody. Why? You trust him to carry a gun and use it. Why can't you trust that he's not going to be a crooked cop or something, right? And then the other thing is change the culture and alter perception. All right, it's not about the color of your skin. It's a cultural thing.
Amen.
Educate your kids.
Yeah.
If you want to emulate gangster rappers who are convicted felons, and you want to look like the guys doing the bad shit, you're going to get treated like it. It is a unavoidable thing. If I've been shot at 10 times by a guy who looks just like you, and not the color of your skin, the way you dress, your aggressive actions, your uncooperativeness, and your aggressive posture, then I'm automatically going to 8 right now. Mm-hmm. And you're going to push me to 10 when you don't listen. Mm-hmm. So change the culture and alter perception of who you are. I could be walking down a dark alley and see a black guy in the alley walking my way. He's got on a pair of skinny jeans and a Hollister polo. I'm not batting an eye. Then I can see a white guy where I can see his chain, I can see his tattoos, and I can see his underwear, both pairs of basketball shorts, his sweatpants, and his jeans, and I'm going to take the safety off my pistol. That has nothing to do with skin color. It has to do with appearance and culture. So
yeah, hey, just to add to that piece real quick, Sean, just to add that piece, because this is very, very important. It's a community thing too, because I can put you in an all-white community and show you police officers knows that trailer park over there is full of meth and full of drugs. Everyone that comes driving out of that trailer park, guess what? They're going to pay special attention to that car coming out. It has nothing to do with their skin color. It has everything to do to what neighborhood the crime is worst in and who's coming in and out of that area. That's who the police officers are going to pay attention to. That's where the crime has nothing to do with skin color.
And if you want to talk about discriminating based on color of skin, it happens to white people a lot. Because I can tell you right now, go to a Puerto Rican neighborhood, go to a black neighborhood in Chicago, and I can tell you right now what car is getting pulled over. The one with the white teens in it. You know why? Because they're white and they don't belong there, and they're there to buy drugs. Yeah. They will get pulled over the second they see a white kid in a car in that neighborhood. But the last thing I had real quick was, lastly, teach your children to respect law enforcement officers and to do what they're told. And that will solve a lot of problems.
I agree. And I think I'm so glad that you guys touched on this. There's, God, I forget his last name. His first name's Terrence. He does amazing videos on this kind of stuff, but he made a video talking about how, we as the black community, have a tendency to instill self-doubt in our children very early. It's this ideology of, you're going to be treated differently because you're Black. You're going to have a harder time doing this because you're Black. So before kids even have the chance to really learn who they are, before they have the chance to build up confidence and that initial mental process of, I can do anything that I want to do, they're being told, well, the system's unfair and it's just going to hate you. So if I'm a kid growing up in that aspect and I haven't even had exposure to real life and that's all that I've ever known, I can't be mad at a kid like that because that's all they've ever known. You know, so, and that breaks my heart. They weren't even given a chance. I do agree kind of with what you said about, you know, the rappers and all that kind of stuff, which is why I have such respect for Lil Wayne right now. He's a weird dude, okay? I don't listen to his music a whole bunch. He's a weird guy. But at the same time, he is speaking up against the fact that, look, like, this is the reality. Like, the people that you guys are claiming you ride or die, don't snitch, all this stuff on, left me for dead. It was a white cop that allowed me to survive and live. And if I had made the stigma and said, fuck you, I don't want your help, I would be dead right now, you know? And so it's
Great point.
It's that kind of mentality that I think we have with I think that the association with rap culture and all that kind of stuff, you know, you look at people like Tupac, right? When you really listen to what old rap was, it was teaching about struggle and the change that we needed to have. You have a new generation of rap and hip hop hitting these younger kids, 6ix9ine and all these different people that, yeah, have catchy music, whatever, but who they are as people is not exactly the most ideal. But for a lot of those kids, they went through what they're going through, or that's what they're portraying is that they've gone through, so they're relatable. And the men, the African-American men that you see that are the CEOs, those aren't relatable men, because a lot of people don't see them and think you came from the hood. They see them and think you're trying to be white. There's not, for some reason, us as the Black community have deemed ourselves unsuccessful. I don't know why. I'm not really sure why, but there's this tension, and this comes more into the internal racism that we have in the Black community, this tension, and I get told this all the time, you're trying to be white if you're successful. You're trying to be white if you're articulate. You're trying to be white if you're doing everything that you can to make it in this world. But if you're, then what qualifies you to be Black? You know what I mean? So I know this kind of strayed away from the police brutality aspect, but it is such a culture thing. It is such a, why are we making it out to be this huge sense of division over something that it doesn't need to be? We all we just have to stop telling each other that we are destined to fail. That makes no sense. We're not weak. We're not fragile beings. We can succeed. It's all about work ethic and what's being taught in the home. Sorry.
Yeah, and everything that you just touched on, seriously, no, that's a great point. You go back into a Russian gulag or a Chinese gulag, they are putting over the loudspeakers and they're bombarding you with propaganda to brainwash you. And over a period of time, you just hear it over and over and over again, and you become brainwashed. It's like, that's how cults are developed, right? So this is seriously one of my written down solutions to this problem of police brutality is our police chiefs and our community leaders need to push back on the leftist policies that are being put in place with a narrative of separating and dividing the vision of the community, white versus Black, rich versus poor, boy or man versus woman. You know what I mean? We have to be able to push back against that so that we, the people, can bond together again and take control of this republic.
Right.
Yeah, like Kate, I brought this up in one of my videos when I was with one of those, you know, 4 horsemen of hate people. I think it was Kurt, his Uncle Kurt, Krusty Kurt. Yeah. I'm gonna use you, Kate, because you're female and you happen to be Black. So if me and you had a baby, right? Mm-hmm. By their logic, I would tell him from birth, you're gonna struggle. You're not gonna, everything's gonna be harder for you. You're not gonna be able to do this. All these doors are shutting in your face all the time. And then what's my kid gonna think? And I asked him that, like, do you tell your kids that? Because I would never tell my kid that they couldn't do anything they wanted to do if they didn't put the work in to do it. And it's not to say that obstacles won't knock you down no matter who you are. If you pick yourself up and keep working hard, you're going to get there.
Right. And just really quickly on that, I know we keep like going off into different things, but with, you know, just when you mentioned this topic of mixed kids, okay, let's also talk about that demographic, that whole middle ground of people that have no idea which side to pick. All right. They've got one side saying you're not good enough. You got the other side saying you're not good enough for this. So now they're just kind of like, I don't know what the hell to do with myself right now. And when you're in predicaments like that, you're then creating a psychological sense of insecurity with identity issues. You know, we're instilling that. And then insecurity will translate over into life choices. You know, when you think about it, okay. And we can go into, I'm not going to get into it because I think we've gone over our time a little bit, but when it comes to like fathers in the home, I see you, Topher. So you're like,
it's a long episode, Topher.
We're going to stop. But you know, fathers in the home and all these different things that pertain, there's so much that pertains to this, guys, but you know, any sense of insecurity or weakening in the community that we give is pushing these kids into gangs for the specific reason of, one, they need something to call home. Okay, if you don't have a father in the home and you see this gang leader, all right, and he's telling you that he's going to give you this sense of brotherhood, you've always wanted that. You have somewhere to get that from, regardless of what that's going to cost you. Same thing with mixed kids. If you don't feel like you belong somewhere and all of a sudden you have someone telling you, no, you belong here, we accept you for who you are, when really they're just using you, it doesn't matter. Your mentality is now that you're getting what you've been craving and that you've been deprived of, which then leads to more gang crime, which then leads to more police activity, which then leads to what we deem as police brutality. It's like a vicious cycle. So that was my rant. Topher's giving.
That was good, Kate. That was good.
I just want to say, you know, I didn't get a chance to get my opinion on this, but I agree with everything you guys said. So yeah, everything, you know, we're gonna post it in the description below, so it will be there, so you can kind of think about some of the stuff. And I will also link Campaign Zero, which is another platform that has some good solutions, and you know, and then broken window policing and stuff like that. You know, you ain't got to agree with all 10 policies, but you can at least look at some that we probably can look into. And I think having, like, as far as policing instructions, I think if we have a review process, so when we implement policies, we need to have a review process after 2 or 3 years if that policy is working. I think right now we just pass stuff and it is what it is. We're not really looking at the effectiveness of that policy. So I think this will be important going forward administratively when we're talking about police brutality and everything else. But I'm glad you guys tuned in, paid attention. Police brutality is a very important issue. It's the hottest topic right now in America. We literally have rioting, looting, and statues being torn down because of police brutality. So hopefully this gave you a little bit more insight to how we feel, what we think are some things that we can implement into a police force right now. Like, as of yesterday, they can, you know, do something about these policies. Shout out to Donald Trump. Shout out to the Republicans trying to get something passed. Tim Scott poured his heart out on the Senate floor. They didn't care. Democrats was like, see ya. So hopefully we get some bipartisan pass here in a minute, and it's very effective, you know. And that's just what I want to leave you guys with. Also, follow everybody. I'm Topher. I go by Topher Town Music. You all know me from TikTok. But you can visit my website today at tophertown.com, where you find all my music, bio, podcasts, and right now I'm raising funds to go full-time content creator. So if you have some extra money, please do. This will allow me to replace my full-time job so I can do more videos, do more research, do more lives, do more podcasts, and allow me to travel to go see Kate, to go see Greg, to go see Sean, and we can come together, make some videos, make some content specific. So this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to open that lane up, and I know you guys really, truly love me. I've raised over $2,000 so far in 2 days. So let's get to the goal of 25K. Thank you guys so much. Even if you don't donate, just share. I know you know some rich folks, man, and
give to good cause.
Just say, hey, man, there's a black guy that, Black Lives Matter. You should invest in this guy. Hey,
man, if you put Black Lives Matter on your shirt, George Soros will fund you.
Hey, so can we do a round robin real quick here then?
Yeah.
Because last time I had a couple people say, Greg, you introduced yourself and you did not mention anything about your website. So I'm going to dovetail off about that real quick. Continuethemission.net, continuethemission.net. It is 100% America focused, but more specifically is veteran focused. And we got some bloggers on there, one from everyone, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine. We got bloggers on there, males, females, all skin colors. But the most important piece of, yes, and Sean is a blogger on there as well. So it's outstanding bloggers, great content. But the pride and joy is the fourth page. One of the biggest problems across this country that vets keep saying is it's hard to find resources. So there's a bunch of us, we worked months and months together to assess different resources out there, and we got 300 to 400 different resources all on one page in 11 different categories. It's a one-stop shop for veterans. So please come check us out at continuethemission.net.
I'm the7oreo.com. I just saw really cool t-shirts. Okay.
And don't forget your shorts.
And my shorts and my stickers. But yeah, and you guys can find out a little bit more about me there. I explained the Oreo thing for everyone that's having a heart attack right now, because the word's a trigger for everyone on the planet. I explain all of that stuff there as well. So definitely check that out.
I'm Sean. I'm a conservative Latino. I'm not as high speed as any of these people. I don't have no website. I don't make no shirts, at least not yet. But you can check out my TikTok. I am at like 95 and change K right now. I'm trying to get to 100. So you can go on there, follow me, like my videos. I often do it, all three of these people, or I'll do a video commenting on something they did. But check it out. I'm sure someday I'll get a website and be a real boy, but right now I don't.
Read his blogs. Read his blogs on continuemission.net.
Also, just if you're watching and you're on the liberal side or the left side, hey, you want to tear down monuments, I suggest you do some research and educate yourself, because Ulysses S. Grant was a soldier on the Union side who fought in the Civil War to free the slaves, and y'all tore his monument down. Maybe y'all like research these things before you just hear Grant.
Or a Democrat, okay, or a liberal, and want to share with us your views, and honestly, guys, that's what this is about. This is what the Solutions University is about, is both sides coming together to find solutions. If you're someone, regardless of your political standing, please reach out to us. Let us know things that you want us to talk on, questions that you may have. It really helps us out in the long run. We want to hear from you guys. This is people inclusive. So
Yes.
You know, most of us, pretty much all of us, sway to the right. We do want to hear from you guys too. So.
And Topher will have the list of solutions put somewhere, right?
Yeah, it'll be in the description. So everything will be in the description, as well as the link to wherever we need a link to. And eventually we're going to have all our social media in the bottom too. If you have a website, it'll just be in the bottom in the description as well. But like I said, once again, thank you all for tuning in to Solutions University. Follow us on social media. We got social media pages as well. So yeah, this is gonna be something that we're gonna do we got 3 more episodes, and then after that we're gonna see what we're gonna do next. We're gonna see how the first 3 go. But don't forget to like, don't forget to share, and don't forget to subscribe. All right, and we out.